Okay, are we live then?
Yes.
Okay, 9:01, and welcome you to the Shasta Shasta Regional Transportation Agency meeting for February 18th, 2026. For the record, all the board members are here except for Aaron, right? Well, let's see, Amy, you call roll. That makes it easy.
Getting
Good
discharged from
morning,
the hospital
everyone.
today.
All right, as promised, we're going to start in reverse today for Chair Watkins.
Present.
And for the record, Board Member Retzner, we know is no. Board Member Harmon. Board Member Killstrom.
Oh, say here, Corky.
Yes, here.
Board Member
Really
Killstrom.
understand.
Here.
Board Member Gallagher.
Here.
Board Member Plummer.
Here.
And Board Member Audette.
Here.
Great, thank you, everyone.
Okay, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead that today. Ready, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. John, would you like to introduce your staff that is here today?
Happy to do that. Good morning, Chair and Board of Directors. Helping us on the other side of the room is Executive Assistant Amy Lindsay and Senior Planner Michael Cooker. Online with us today is CFO Jessica Carlson. In the room today, we have to my left, Legal Counsel John Kenny. And we have Accounting Clerk Kelly Irving, Senior Planners Jennifer Pollum and Keith Williams, and Associate Planner Moen Kalui. With that, that's the end of introductions this morning.
Okay. We will open it up for any public comments. Does anybody like to address the board?
Public, no, we're on item 6, Chair.
How did you get to 6 when I'm on 3?
That's our fiscal policy.
Oh,
Project, and I'm-
Oh. Item 6. Okay, so we will open up nominations here for the Board of Directors for the chair and vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Kevin Cry as chair and Tanessa Audette as vice chair. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, do people,
I talked to Kevin. He said he would do it, so.
okay, so we need to figure out, we can take a vote on it. We'll have,
Well,
let's have discussion.
You could do what you want, or if somebody wants to make another motion, they can do that. So that's where you are.
I meant to ask you if you were okay with that too, by the way. But I didn't want to.
What fun would that be?
Now, Kevin Cry is not here today.
Correct.
And Tanessa, you are here and you are nominated for vice chair.
Yeah, that's better. That's better than being nominated for chair. So, yeah, I'll take the token next seat.
We
Well, it's front seat today.
Yeah, here.
have had
Chair, I don't care.
I'll make a motion over the top of that because it's somewhat not how we generally do things at SRTA. So I'm going to make a motion that I'm going to nominate myself as chair and Mr. Plummer as vice chair, if he's willing. He's probably up for that position.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm an alternate
Yeah.
now, so I'm just
Oh,
taking
so we
Kevin's
can't do that.
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
for today.
I think the order is to have somebody from the county.
No,
So
I think the next one is ready.
it's the county. So we've got Anderson, Reading, Shasta Lake, and then now this would be county is the next one. And then it'll go back to Reading the following year. Typically try to go. Right?
Okay, so Sean, is that the way you read the?
In terms of the structure of how it goes, generally has gone in the past is like county, Shasta Lake, Anderson, Rabba or Reading, and then that way has been kind of the general rotation.
So
However, the board also, a couple of years ago, voted for City of Reading representative twice in a row. At the end of the day, it is up to the board to decide who you'd like for representation.
Mark was the RABA representative that year that he came in the second,
Yes.
so that's why that happened. But, so it is the order of the county, so it's either gonna be Kevin, Kellstrom, or Corky, which is why Kellstrom said Kevin, not the other two, so. Smart.
My bad. I thought Anderson was up, just trying to look out for my beloved
No,
city.
Anderson
South-
You get
is
two more.
next up.
County.
Reading
I'll
will go-
retract.
No,
I'll do-
no,
I'll retract
Anderson
my,
is next up for chair, but
Yeah.
the county is up for vice chair.
Or reverse of what you just said.
So,
It's reverse of what you just said. So it'll be,
okay.
yeah, definitely vice if you want it.
yeah, so,
I'm vice chair now, so figure that one out, Vanessa.
I know, but again, Kevin did that last time because he was trying to change that as well. So
well, if we're gonna follow the protocol, the vice chair should be from the county.
no, the chair should be from the county, the vice chair should be from Anderson if we're going in that, for that. So, but you did that this year. It doesn't really matter. Why don't we just vote? It's not, what's the alternative? We
Yeah,
need this
so-
alternative, nobody seconded it, so just vote on the first. Unless you have another alternative. You have another alternative motion, Mike?
Well, if we go with,
County.
the counter, with Kevin as chair, and he's not here.
And the vice chair would
then
take
the
over the
vice chair
meeting.
would do it, and that would be you.
Right now, it'll
That
be
would
me.
You to run the meeting.
Right,
for the
so,
day.
right. So if somebody wants to make an alternative to that, happy to hear it.
Yeah.
How about we take a vote on it? This is
Well,
really not that complicated.
Before we take a vote, I'm going to ask if there are any alternative motions. Seeing none, we will
Mike,
take,
make an alternative.
That's right. You- No, thank you.
Will you make an alternative if you have an idea of it?
no, I'm not going to make an alternative.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion that
Kevin Fry is
Fry
chair, Vanessa Audette is vice chair.
and Vanessa is vice chair. Okay, Amy, would you do a roll call vote on that?
You bet.
In reverse.
Reverse. Chair Watkins,
No.
Board Member Harmon,
Yes.
Board Member Kellstrom,
Yes.
Board Member Gallagher,
No,
Board Member Plummer,
Yes.
Board Member Audette.
Yeah.
Great. Motion passes. Thank
The
you.
motion passes. So, since the new chair is not here, we will then hand the gavel over to the vice chair.
Thanks so much. All right. Item 7 for fiscal policy. So we need to appoint 3.
Yes.
Replacing,
Well, what we have is in terms of fiscal policy, we have 3 primary members, and then we also act as an alternate. By default, the chair is a part of, unless the board votes separately,
oh,
the chair
yeah.
is by default by policy on the fiscal and policy
Okay.
committee. So we need at least 2 additional primary members nominated and 1 alternate.
Vanessa, you've been doing that for a while.
I have since I came on, actually. I'm happy to give it up, but I'll do it too, either way.
Okay, and who else has been doing it with you? I'm the
Matt
alternate.
did it, which was great. You've been an alternate.
Right. Can you still do it, Matt, as an alternate?
No, I don't think so.
What was that? Okay.
The alternate to this board shouldn't be on the fiscal policy.
Oh, no, I wouldn't think so.
That wouldn't make
No,
sense.
I mean, you would, well, it would not be a good practice.
Yeah.
So Cry is automatic,
Cries on there automatically.
and then we need 2 more?
Yeah.
And currently serving have been, previously was Chair Watkins, Audette, and Plummer.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to have Chair Audette and Watkins to remain on there.
Well, Kevin's the chair.
Yeah, but he's automatic on there.
He's
Yeah,
automatic.
I'm happy, yeah, that's fine. But does somebody else want it?
Yeah.
Gallagher, you
yeah,
want that one?
That's a question.
I'll second.
Slow down.
You know
Let's
what?
discuss for a second.
You're trying to
Does
get
anybody
out
else
of
want
it.
to do it?
Okay, so
Gallagher, you don't want to be on it?
No, thank
You were on
you.
there before. I was on, I served.
you
with
want,
on
would
there.
you like to be the alternate?
Nope.
Okay, so we have a nomination, I think, from Audette that you and I,
Hellstrom nominated.
I made the motion, Corky Harmon seconded.
that Audette.
Are you gonna stay the
would remain on,
You'll stay the alternate?
I
Fiscal.
guess, and somebody else wants that, they're welcome to it.
you'd like to be the alternate?
I don't care. Unless somebody else would like it, I don't care.
Anybody else
No one
want to be
wants
alternate?
Okay, All right, we have a
You wanna
motion.
Add yourself to the alternate.
yeah. So we have a motion from Hellstrom for chair, Tanessa, Greg, and alternate being, yeah, Hellstrom. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Passes 5-1, Amy.
Great, thank you.
All right. Public comment. This is time set aside for citizens to address the board on consent agenda items or matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the board. By law, the board cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda, but may schedule an item for future meetings. Do we have any public comment? Any online?
None online.
None here.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move to consent. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the agency votes on the motion to approve. Do we have any items that anybody wishes to take off to discuss with Kevin?
Nothing to take off, but we do have a correction.
Is that this?
Yeah.
So Chair, I would move approval of the consent calendar with the correction that item 9.5 as passed out in the blue paper
Mhm.
would replace the one that was in the packet. And so I move approval of
And
the,
I'll second that.
Okay. all
I had
the-
questions on two items. Not necessarily, I don't need to pull them, but just kind of clarification.
Yeah.
So one was 9.5, the budget.
it's the blue paper.
And that's the one that was corrected.
Okay.
Correct. Answer the question, or do you want to take a minute?
Well, I wanted to clarify that the column that says Q2 is only that quarter and not year to date, representing Q1 and Q2.
On which page?
Kind of all of them. The just that column that says fiscal year 25-26 Q2 actual revenues.
Jessica, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah,
Can you hear?
the entire report is inclusive of first and second quarter, so July 1st of the fiscal year beginning through December 31st of 2025.
Okay. That
It's not just Q2, it's cumulative.
That's
Correct.
correct. Through quarter two ending December 31st, 2025.
okay, that clears up my questions then, because I was looking at it and I thought, well, if we spent 46% of our budget in one quarter, that could be problematic, but as long as it's cumulative, then that makes sense. That was my only question there. And then 9-11 CTSA report. I was having trouble squaring, I guess, page 2, which has the performance measures and then what looks like the performance versus page 3. In particular, I wasn't sure when we say passenger trips per revenue hour, for example, and on page 2, it says 1.4, it looks like for year to date versus the 3 of the standard. But then on page 3, it says 3.7 is the current status?
That, I tried to black that out. This is a printing issue. This page
Mhm.
that you guys are seeing, sorry, those aren't numbers on them. And I'll hold it up again. This page is the Reading Area Bus Authority adopted standards, and what they were doing as well as reporting on Reading Area Bus Authority current status. So when we moved the CTSA, the Consolidated Transportation Services Agency operations over to the Reading Area Bus Authority, Reading Area Bus Authority applied their rural standards to the CTSA for performance measures. So this 3.7 that you see there is how rural was doing under RABA before the CTSA.
Okay, so they were at 3.7 and now it's at 1.4.
That is just the CTSA portion of their rural services, not inclusive of RABA rural services. That is reported to the Reading Area Bus Authority Board, all rural services.
Okay, so it's kind of
Three is a standard, right? Three is a standard. CTSA is included in all rural services, and rural services do get reported to the Reading Area Bus Authority Board. This is just set up that.
Okay. And then it looks like in terms of the 4 standards or so that are on page 2, that there's quite a gap between current performance and standards.
Correct.
What is there a plan for?
So
I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I don't know how much of it is like because they just took over the CTSA versus there being.
You serve on the Reading Area Bus Authority. Would you like to? It's a small.
Can I make a point of order? Item should have been pulled, the previous item should have been pulled. If we were running the meeting correctly, you would have pulled these, we would have voted on consent. Matt would have had time to.
He asked to make a
go.
comment. He didn't ask to challenge it.
If
So
we're gonna discuss it, proper order. Which obviously.
duly
got thrown out
duly
the window.
noted, but continue. So there is a performance issue with RABA altogether. And so we're taking, obviously we had a bunch of changes that we were trying to make these things more efficient and better serving to the public first. And when that hasn't quite gotten us the ridership we're looking for or what is necessary, because of the federal funding, our sort of the standard has been changed a bit. So we're meeting that standard, but we're still not seeing the ridership we should be seeing. And so we're actually moving to doing all 3 fares for the next year to also see if maybe that's the obstacle and increase ridership for those that are already using it, possibly adding some more. But it's been a process. When John took over, he basically had to redo the whole thing. How trips work, straight lines as opposed to circles and all kinds of stuff, but the ridership is not great. It's pretty bad. In addition to the 3 fares that are going to be implemented on July 1, 2026, March 1, in a few days, the Dignity Health Connected Living will be taking over the complementary paratransit, which is a requirement from the American with Disabilities Act portion of RABA. So right now that part, complementary paratransit, sits under their current contractor NTM. March 1, that portion of the RABA services moves over to Dignity Health Connected Living, and they'll be the operator. The reason that RABA has chosen to do that is to try to find efficiencies, because ADA riders and oftentimes the clients that ride the Shasta Connect DHCL service can have shared rides. ADA has to have priority because there are requirements for them to receive the priority order, but seniors that are not ADA and others that of the general public that might use Shasta Connect rural services can go on those same vehicles, but the ADA has that priority. And that starts March 1st, and we're really looking forward to seeing some improvements with shared rides.
One last question. Are there any, are these standards tied to any type of funding in that if we don't hit them, then funding's reduced?
Yes,
Federal or state or both?
federal, usually mostly federal.
Our goal, the Reading Area Bus Authority had a meeting this Monday, and they are actually striving to increase ridership to meet these other federal goals that are called, I think it's small city intensive transit. And though if we meet any of those goals, we could have additional money coming to us from the federal government. The Transportation Development Act goals
right now for this year are, I think this is the last year that they are, performance measures are on hold. And at the state level, they are working to revise the Transportation Development Act.
Would that impact money coming to CERTA or just to Robert directly?
Really what they've done is change the standards for lower ridership as opposed to penalized you for low ridership.
Okay.
So it's been interesting. So we have a first from Watkins and we have a second from Felstrom. All those in favor of passing consent? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We'll move on to item 10, Executive Director's report. Take it away, Sean.
Thank you, Chair and Board. Just a few updates here this morning for you. First, on the federal level of transportation updates, we've been tracking the multi-year transportation bill. As you know, the current bill in Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act expires September 30th. After that, we would not have another multi-year transportation bill. We have heard discussions that both of the subcommittees for transportation and infrastructure or public works, depending on how they call them, at the House and the Senate are discussing releasing potentially draft language from each of the different sides of Congress by the end of March is the next thing that we're hearing to see what that looks like. We're hearing a lot of discussion about that we'll likely see something with a focus on fix it first and kind of a maintenance approach with roads and bridges and other needs, safety being a big part of that as well. And then also that we may see a number of programs migrate from being the competitive program approach to more of a formulaic program approach. There's been across the nation as well as in California, a lot of comment about how IJA really added all these additional competitive programs and just siloed the money more and everyone's having to spend time doing stuff. And that's not as helpful versus having fewer programs with focus on those and being more formulaic in approach. But we'll wait to see if the draft language actually is, and then we'll start to build a review and then determine, any comments or anything to provide at that for part of that process. So what we also heard from the House side under Congressman Gray's was a desire in the House to have a House version passed so it can go through the legislative process by the end of spring of 2026 in order to meet the different congressional processes to have a bill in place by October 1st. So we will continue to track that and see if that actually happens. So more on that one as we learn more. On the state side, just three quick items. One is we continue to have discussions about reform to Senate Bill 375. As you recall, Senate Bill 375 is the greenhouse gas reduction targets item for regional agencies and the requirement to have a sustainable community strategy as part of our regional transportation plan. I'm specifically focusing on transportation, land use and housing, and how that can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Big Four MPOs had just completed last month a series of meetings that they had that included regional agencies, representatives from cities and counties, the building industry, the housing industry, transit, as well as environmentalists to talk about some ideas, the challenges, the lessons learned over the last 15 years. Those meetings are completed, and we did get word that the Big Four MPOs had sponsored a bill via Senator Calvedon to introduce SB 1087. So 1087 is the bill we're going to be watching. At the moment, it's very basic in nature with just two elements. And part of that was because Senator Calvedon wanted this to be a bill that went through the proper and correct processes all the way through all the different committees to have review at the state level, rather than have it as a spot bill. The two elements in the bill for now are a proposal to revise the update process for the Sustainable Community Strategy component of the Regional Transportation Plan to be every 8 years. It's a very technical process, a lot of coordination with the data and analysis that we do, working with the local agencies. We see that this at least will align better with other long-term planning processes, such as the regional needs allocation process and housing element updates that your local jurisdictions get. So we see that as a plus side. The other item is related to funding. Under Senate Bill 1, the state provides roughly $30 million annually in formulaic and competitive funding to support the implementation of regional transportation plans for both MPOs and non-MPO regions. The bill by the Big Four is proposing that instead of the 12.5 million that we receive formulaically every year, that be bumped up to 25 million, 5 million be remaining for competitive programs. Specifically related to that 5 million matches up with a technical set aside for assistance for very technical tools, model updates, those types of things, as well as currently there's a 2 million set aside for tribal governments to implement plans in align with regional agencies and the RTPs in coordination there. We anticipate there'll be a lot of discussion about that because as we know, on the competitive side, a lot of cities and even transit agencies at times will apply for those competitive funds. So I'm sure that there will be some discussions about that and whether that will actually see that. There may be other items, for example, we've discussed here about the support for having CEQA not apply to the regional transportation plan. There has been some discussion about what that could look like. The Big Four MPOs are getting some additional counsel on that of possibly what may be considered a CEQA equivalent process because our SB requires them to meet 4 of the 5 criteria. Still learning. We expect some more updates on some other items. So we anticipate a couple more meetings over the next 3-4 weeks. We may see some more changes to the bill. So I'm anticipating around April timeframe. I may have something for you to be able to consider some type of support or even amended position related to that bill. So more to come on that. Also on February 3rd, I participated in the CAUSTA's task force to look at how the state can do a better job of creating sustainable communities and they're looking at transportation, they look at housing and land use along with other state agencies. This last meeting focused on the task force to provide feedback to CAUSTA and the other state agencies on differences, challenges, and opportunities between transportation, land use, and housing. From our perspective, and actual implementation challenges there. From our perspective, we highlighted challenges regarding research, evaluate outcomes of programs that tend to look at large and urban areas versus rural areas. So the challenge that presents. Issues with continued high costs to build housing, the need for additional CEQA reform, and that fewer programs with ongoing funding are better than many programs with one-time or unclear funding on a regular basis, subject to the whims of the state legislature. That's not helpful for our local jurisdictions and our communities. We also highlighted that definitions on many of the programs that are passed in the legislative language oftentimes get stuck in that it applies to everyone rather than being more context sensitive, and that often definitions are based on urban services and not rural services, and the challenge that presents for eligibility for those programs, et cetera. So we encourage the state agencies to advise legislative folks along with cities, counties, regional agencies to be like, hey, have a context sensitive approach. So we'll see how that plays out in any potential recommendations later this year. On state legislative updates, the February 20th was a deadline for introduction of bills for this year. Currently, there's not been much other than the Big Four MPO bill that we are finding at the moment related to regional transportation agencies at the moment. However, I did want to highlight one bill, Assembly Bill 2679 by Assemblywoman Hadwick. That bill would require that all cities in California receive a minimum $200,000 in formula funds under the Senate Bill 1 Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation account starting July 1, 2027. That account is funds that come to all your jurisdictions, cities and counties for road maintenance. It's a formulaic program. It doesn't come through SRTA. It just comes straight through from Caltrans. Your jurisdictions submit the projects that they're going to fund with that, and then they receive their funds. The issue has been, for example, our 2 smallest cities, Anderson and Shasta Lake, see greater fluctuations of what those funds are because it varies every year based upon fuel taxes that we receive as revenue. And we've seen, for example, 1 year we could have 150,000 going to our 2 smallest cities, and another year it's roughly 280, 300,000. So the idea here is provide a little bit of consistency, especially for our smallest cities across the state, that they at least have something to rely on from a budgeting process for transportation and maintenance. So That's a bill that's out there. We're watching it. We're still waiting to see if there's any additional language. That's the gist of what we found. There could be something where we may come back to you for possible support later on that. We know it would at least benefit our smallest communities. The county and City of Reading get quite a bit more money through that account. And so I don't see that really impacting those jurisdictions in our region. With that, that concludes my report for today.
One quick question. Clearly moving from competitive to formulaic reduces administrative burden, but do we think that we would actually get more money out of a formulaic approach?
Are we talking about like at the federal level?
Well, I guess in the work that you said the 4 large MPOs are doing in terms of trying to shift that, yeah.
Yeah, so on the state side with the SB1 funds, we already receive roughly 170,000 a year annually. So from an administrative standpoint, it doesn't change really much for us on that end. As long as the language stays out as currently presented. We could see language that is introduced that adds some additional administrative requirements. Those are things I want to watch to see what that is. If we get rid of it, we could see the state want to say, hey, well, we still want regions to do competitive process. Rather than just be able to pick certain projects working with partners. If we did want to pass on some funds to local agency for some type of a planning activity. So at the moment, the way it is, it wouldn't change our administrative process. I am watching it also whether or not any language gets proposed later that requires additional local match requirement. That'd be separate. Because there are limitations on what we can use as local match for those funds. And so that's something I have to watch, if we can at least be able to like match existing funds with even our federal planning funds, I'm not concerned. If it creates a very narrow definition of that, then it might add to the planning side of what we pull from our planning and programming funds and also our local transportation funds for planning and administration. Because we're required to do a match with those. So that is something I'll watch.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so we'll move to item 11. We receive board members reports. Oh, we're doing it at the beginning. We have a conference next month that I'll be going to down in Long Beach. And then we did have CalCog did have we had a board meeting just by Zoom to discuss legislation, which most of that stuff Sean covered. The only other thing of note is that the vehicle miles traveled bill to do the study was skipped over in that meeting. They didn't even talk about it. So I brought it up. It's a very touchy subject. And there really is no good solution on that one. So that should be interesting to see how that bill progresses. I think we should regularly be updating and getting some type of information about where that is and how that is. As far as how it travels through the legislature.
Have we sent in a letter of opposition and should we
Well,
send in a letter of opposition?
On which bill?
1427, maybe 1421.
1421.
21.
And that's the one to tax the miles traveled.
It's the study to then, which you need to do first in order to then
Right.
implement. So
yes, that is one that we're tracking from a Caltrans responsibility and a CTC responsibility for that. The one thing I'll add on is I think it's AB 1421.
yes, it is.
Is that what was introduced? So let me back up. Mid-2010s, the state had passed a bill that essentially created what was called a Road User Charge Technical Advisory Committee. It was made up of representatives to advise both CalSTA and the Transportation Commission, along with reviewing a number of studies to look at a potential VMT, vehicle miles traveled fee, with the intent, all as we can understand, to that potentially replace the gas tax as a funding mechanism. That is how it's been explained to us so far. The road user charge tax was created. They've been in existence since then. And Caltrans, CalSTA, and the Transportation Commission have done a number of studies related to mechanisms, how would they impact rural regions? They did a tribal study. They look at internal processes for the state that said if you were to do that, what would be issues that you'd have internally? Also, how would you incorporate things like U-Haul services, non-state users of our system? Because if you were to replace the fuel tax, VMT, you're not getting a benefit from out-of-state use of users. Also, looking at electric vehicles and the fact of the current rate is not considered comparable to what everyone pays with gas and diesel. AB 1421, with the language we last reviewed, did two things. It eliminated the road user charge TAC, and it asked for CalSTA to provide a report that summarizes all the prior studies with possible recommendations by January 1st of 2027. So that is interesting from perspective. We're in 2026. So if your bill doesn't pass October, you've got only a couple months for the state agency to provide a report and submit something to the legislature. We are tracking that, and we can do that and continue to provide updates of where that is at.
And I'm sure if they installed the VMT, they would take away the $1.15 gas taxes extra that we pay, right?
So
Of course not.
what the conversations have been, because that is a big concern to the regional agencies across the state, is the director of CalCog, Bill Higgins, and a number of times since I've been in participating meetings the last 4 years as director, have put legislative folks on notice about that and specifically asked that, including Congress, Senator Lori Wilson, who chairs the Transportation Committee and I believe is the sponsor for 1421. So we continue as CalCog as well. What has been all the responses you've received? What is the things that you hear? That is just, of course, what people say versus what we see in legislation, if anything is introduced at this moment.
Is it appropriate to send in a letter of opposition at this point?
I would say no, because there's no VMT tax, nothing there. You're talking about getting rid of the road user charge tax and asking for a report. So based upon current language, I don't see that there's any purpose for a letter in terms of opposition.
In English, the TAC was not required to put forth reports to the legislature. And so when you don't get they've not been able to cohesively or coherently said, how is this going to work? And then given that to the legislature, yet the requirement is still there. You're going to go away from gas powered cars. You're going to make it all work on EV, but how are you going to do that? And then how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to replace the gas tax when everybody is not moving over to EV? We don't have there's all these issues, and TAC since 2014. So for the last 12 years has not been able to come up with a way to make this work. And they're not required to give those. So the bill is apparently saying, you got to give us a report and we're just going to get rid of you. And we're going to have this report. But again, what nobody knows, because there's intent and then there's reality, is that somebody has to say, you're going to have to keep both. And then if you say that, you have to say only the EVs are going to be charged for this. And nobody wants to hear that you're going to get vehicle miles traveled on your EVs, because what they also found out is that they thought if you had an EV, you drive less, but you don't drive less. You drive just as much as you did before. You just now do it in an electric vehicle. And so the intent of the whole thing to reduce the amount of driving that we do, to reduce the amount of emissions, reduce gas, all that kind of stuff, just hasn't worked out. But the mandate has remained. And so either they're going to have to change that mandate or elect the Republican governor and blame him for it not working. I don't know. Whatever the plan is.
Let's try that.
They're going to have to do something. And I don't know what this is going to be. The promise of the CalCog when we discuss it is that it isn't going to be what they intended, meaning you get both. But we don't know that. And so I'm assuming this bill is to say, like, well, you're going to have to make a decision. And if TAC can't tell us what to do moving forward, this new one is going to tell us that. But as we know, every time that you get something like this, that means decisions are that much closer. So
is gas tax collected at like a county level or a local level and then distributed locally, or is it all put into a bucket at the state level and then distributed from a formula?
It's collected at a state level.
State level for sure.
And then it is dispersed based upon the various mechanisms and legislation under SB1 and other codes in the state to either provide these as funds for Caltrans to administer or to cities and counties.
So our amount doesn't depend on how much gas tax we actually produce in Shasta County.
In theory, it does.
In
But
theory,
good luck finding that formula.
but I would say in general, we, in the past from studies done, a brief looking at it, we have done better usually in this region than what the revenue would be. It is a question in my mind of like, what's the current status of that and how does that look?
Well, that's kind of my thought, is that I would assume that we have a lower portion of electric vehicles here than we say in LA, of course, right? And so we're actually potentially producing more gas tax per person than we then say in a place that has more electric vehicles. So if they started charging the electric vehicles through something like vehicle miles traveled, and that's being then put into a sum, then we're getting a broader portion that actually could benefit us.
We have more roads and less people,
Well,
so.
the problem is that you're gonna get both. You're gonna get vehicle miles traveled and gas tax. You're not gonna get one or
Madam
the other.
Chairman, you know, this is a report, and certainly you can receive all the information you get, but we're getting a little far off the field. And the concern about the board discussing matters that could lead to a decision that isn't on the calendar would be.
Right, but this is the update about what.
No, that's fine.
Information that we've been receiving.
Everything so far is fine. I'm just worried about where we're going.
Do you want me to cut it off?
It was
Yeah.
item 11, which was reporting ones that SRTA paid you to attend.
Nobody pays me to
I
attend
know,
anything.
so that's all you had to
I-
report.
I do, but I had a Zoom. I had a meeting,
I know.
so it's my update.
So anyway, that was a very detailed report on that Zoom.
Thanks, Greg. All right, so moving to item 12 by popular demand. Review, discuss and approve proposed amendments to SRTA's policy on meeting minutes. Sean?
Thank you, Chair. I'll do a brief discussion on this. At our last meeting, there was a brief discussion about the content of meeting minutes, and a request was made to discuss further along with any applicable action. Staff had reviewed SRTA's existing policy and several guidance documents, which are described in the staff report before you. In short, meeting minutes must be recorded, but the manner in which they're recorded is up to each government agency. State government code does not specify the exact manner other than the fact that we should, and it should be of the board. In general, it's recommended that written meeting minutes serve as a record of actions taken by the board, including motions, amendments, motions to amendments, etc. The results of votes, as well as if during any item, whether public comments are made on any item, along with any summary of support or opposition, if it's provided. Transcripts of discussion should not be included, is what's recommended, unless the board feels that there's a need on a particular item or point. In that instance, it's recommended a brief neutral summary be provided. The guidelines also acknowledge that technology today allows for full recording of meetings that can be made available to the public. Since 2021, SRTA has been able to visually and audibly record our meetings. Those are provided and linked on our website and available on our YouTube channel for anyone to view the full meeting, including discussion. Staff additionally have reviewed effort needed to prepare minutes for all applicable agency, board, and committee meetings. It was roughly estimated that 1.5 to 2 hours of staff time was needed to prepare minutes for every 1 hour of a meeting. The staff time costs also included and mentioned in the staff report. On review, staff is proposing amendments to SRTA's meeting minutes policy to focus on preparing what are called action minutes. And in that, the amendments also clarify the content of the minutes, when summary style minutes may be applicable, and to clarify minute recording for closed sessions if that is ever requested and applicable. Legal counsel was consulted on the amended language before you. Also, staff discussed and reviewed this with the Fiscal Policy Committee, who had asked for some additional information related to the recording of public comments. We believe that amendments to the policy adhere to the requirements for recording agency meeting minutes while helping maximize efficiency of staff time to address all agency responsibilities or workload. With that, I'll hand it over to you for discussion and any action.
Anybody have any comments?
No, but I'll make a motion to approve with the staff recommendations.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, any discussion?
I did just have one question, which is less relevant to the issue at hand, but I thought it was kind of strange and I wasn't sure if this is actually happening. It says in point D in the policy, it says as soon as possible after each meeting, the executive director shall forward a copy of the minutes to each member. Is that happening? And I don't know that it needs to happen. seems unnecessary, but.
We've done it. Yeah, in review, that was something that we realized was in there, and I would say in practice, from what I can recall, not probably exactly been followed to a T related to that. We've provided usually as part of the board draft and packet. So that could be something if you want to adjust it or recommend that just as a part of the packet when it goes out, that's up to you.
Could it be that it would be made available at
Yeah.
last? Not like so as soon after, if available, like
request.
upon request or as soon as possible after each meeting, it'll be available to the.
It can be available
Also available
on request.
request. You can adjust that.
Yeah, can we approve it with that amendment and,
I'll
you amend your?
change my original, absolutely.
Okay. We have a first and a second as recommended with that minor adjustment to availability of the minutes. All in favor? Any opposed? Right. We'll move to item 13, review and provide direction on draft work element planning budget for fiscal year 2020 and WP. Michael Cooper. There
Yeah,
you
let
are.
me get my share going here. Okay, is that showing up for you or are you seeing my notes?
Nope, that's great.
Great. Okay, this is agenda item 13, review and provide direction on draft
Michael,
work. Yes,
it's in presentation mode on our
Okay.
side.
all right, thank you. One sec. Let's try it this way. Is that better?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, I'm here to ask the board to review and provide direction on draft work elements and the planning budget for the upcoming fiscal year work program. As a refresher, the overall work program is an application for federal consolidated planning grant funds, and it's also a contract for state grant funds. It also serves secondary purposes of an agency work plan, a tracking tool for the board of directors, and a monitoring tool for local, state, federal, and partners, as well as the general public. We are in the middle of a three-part process. In December, I presented preliminary regional planning priorities to the board for review and input. This month, I am presenting a draft work element and budget for additional review and input. And then in April, I will incorporate board direction as well as feedback from our state and federal partners and present a final draft of the overall work program for adoption. Just as a refresher, these are the proposed planning priorities for the region for the upcoming fiscal year. First one is a new one. It's added to kind of enhance clarity on what we do. Perform ongoing or scheduled core functions. And then the rest are carryovers from prior years, improving the safety, resiliency, and mobility and efficiency of regionally significant corridors, enhance goods and freight movement, strengthen data and performance-based planning, support active transportation in the Shasta region, improve delivery of public transportation, and improve public engagement in the planning process. So what does that look like? As far as ongoing or scheduled core functions, you have work elements like 70101, which covers the update and the maintenance of the current RTP SCS. You have 70201 for transportation improvement programs, 70202 overall work program, public information and participation, and the travel demand model. Under improving regionally significant corridors, there's specific efforts such as the Fix 5 Cascade Gateway, Pitt River Bridge rehabilitation or replacement, and implementation of the Envision 273 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. Under enhanced goods and freight movement, you have work like the Regional Freight Plan 70118 and the Shasta Next Gen Railroad Corridor Crossing Plan if funded, which we're waiting to hear back on. There's also other complementary efforts like Fix 5 Cascade Gateway that would fall under this priority. Under strengthen data and performance-based planning, we have the travel demand model, performance measures, regional data, Good news is that the Shasta Planning Data Dashboard is expected to be completed this fiscal year, so that should be available to everyone for the following fiscal year. Under Support Active Transportation in the Shasta region, we have the ongoing active transportation planning and the Go Shasta Plan update process, which has been funded by a competitive state grant. Under Improved Delivery of Public Transportation, we have 70602, Public Transportation Planning and Coordination. And under Improved Public Engagement, we have the ongoing public engagement work element. The two new work elements for the upcoming fiscal year include 70119, which is tentatively being proposed as SCS evaluation strategies, and that will be using fiscal year 26-27 formula funds to evaluate the effectiveness of our SCS implementation with a special focus on rural contexts. And then the other new work element contingent on receiving the competitive grant funding would be the Shasta Next Gen Railroad Crossing Plan. How does the budget compare to prior years? Well, we're going to see two planning efforts conclude this year. We've already seen the Pitt River Tribe Long Range Transportation Plan complete, and the Shasta Planning Data Dashboard on track to complete as well. However, we did have a large ask for the Shasta Next Gen Railroad Crossing Plan and an associated local match of 20%. And so the overall draft budget is at just a little over 4.5 million, which is about 151,000 less than the initially adopted budget for this current year. So what's next? Staff will address any board or public comments and submit this for review today by Caltrans, FHWA, and FTA. We will then receive a comment letter back, which we will address, and we will present a final draft to the board in April. So our recommendation is to review and provide direction on the draft work elements. And that's all I have.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
What's the Shasta Planning Dashboard again?
That is the effort that Moen's working on. And Moen, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, so the Shasta Planning Data Dashboard has. So the Shasta Planning Data Dashboard is meant to provide data and visualize the data that like our jurisdictions need. For example, the VMT per TAZ is what we need for grant applications and other applications. So we are in the process of developing the data dashboard. In the first stage, we are planning to make some visualizations of the VMT, the emissions, the other performance measures that we have here. But in the next stage, we're gonna have a repository of like data that the jurisdictions use, like the GIS data, the other data that we have, but jurisdictions have problem accessing. We also have data gaps. We need to provide like data to jurisdictions. We are working on the data gaps. We had the public engagement effort that in that we asked like jurisdictions what data needs they have, what data gaps they have, so that we can provide that data through the data dashboard. Also, it's a public facing platform for public to know what's going on in the region. Also, we can have, for example, the live transit visualized for people like to know where the buses are in real time. So it can have like different applications, but we expect like that we can deliver that like in June, the first version of like the data dashboard.
I'll add to that too, that part of that is to help us be able to illustrate, especially to Federal Highway Administration and FTA, Federal Transit Administration, how the region's doing related to federal performance targets. As you may recall, We generally support the state targets because in some areas, the metric is so low, going up or down just a few based upon the criteria, your percentages can be higher or low, right, in a given time. But what we want to be able to do is show how the region and the projects that our local cities, the county, Caltrans are working on, how they're contributing to safety performance metrics, travel time, reliability, and other things that are part of the the three different performance measures sections that FHW and FTA have for regions, cities, and counties.
Can I just ask to that end? So the end user for the dashboard is who?
So it can be jurisdictions. We need data for grant application or for their daily use, regular use, and also the general public that can, for example, use the real-time transit status, and also for example, another thing we are thinking of is the housing, to visualize the housing in the region. These are things that the general public can use. Also jurisdictions, they have data gaps, and we can provide that through the data dashboard.
So if I go to that website as the public, do I have my own dashboard for the public, and is there a separate dashboard for the agencies? Because we obviously are going to want very different things.
Yes. So for jurisdictions, for example, we will have like a repository for the data that they can download for their own use, and they can access the data. But some of the data are not like, public don't use like that data, and more like we are thinking visualization for the public, general public, because it's more understandable like to them, and it's, simple to make it simple for them to
It's okay to say simple.
Yeah. It should be, yeah.
So it'll be different. So it's two dashboards. Okay. Right. And then
When we say jurisdictions, we're talking about the cities in Shasta County and the county.
Yes. Yes. For example, the city of Reading has asked, for example, has requested like data. For example, the BMT data. We have requests from other cities for traffic data, the traffic volume data. So we can put them all there so that they can have access to. So they can see the volumes visualized there. So yeah, we have requests, public requests that we can use the data dashboard as a platform for them to directly access the data.
is there going to be progress on projects as well?
That is something we're evaluating, probably not in a first phase.
But something will be on there for each project, how it's being funded?
So that is something we've been exploring with the Eco Interactive software we have with our programming tools. So that is on, yes, so that way when we have existing projects, how are they funded? When would be the construction schedule? So as Elma, we're working on, as part of that phasing in of the Eco Interactive software, first we're setting it up with the programming side to make sure all the jurisdictions can upload their information, they've got all the required information, it coordinates with Caltrans and their review through the local assistants. And then we're getting to that stage as well to be able to provide information about currently programmed projects.
So when we say performance measures on this slideshow, is that what we're talking about, or is that something different, or are they some overlap?
There's overlap. So performance measures is part of, for us, is we're tracking what's taking place. We participate in statewide discussions about the state's progress and goals, the methodology, getting updated information, those processes, seeing if there are any changes, and then evaluating on our end. The data dashboard project was a technical behind the scenes, like we need some way to be able to allow for the public, electeds, and our partners to have the visualization of that data rather than just a bunch of charts, tables. It's like, and so we're working on that so we can actually then have something that's available for the region that's region specific.
Thank you. I also had a question around the sustainable community strategies evaluation. I guess two questions. One, I was curious if if we've ever done an evaluation on that, or if this is the first time, and I don't know how far back that goes. And then kind of related, I was curious how in that program they're defining sustainable communities, like what is the objective behind that?
So the thought process here is, I think anecdotally, we look at various projects or jurisdictions that we've completed and we said, hey, here's the benefits. For example, I'll use downtown Reading and the affordable housing assistance communities projects. Those have been submitted. The AHSC funding is part of that strategy within the sustainable community strategy for the city of Reading downtown strategic growth area to help encourage lower VMT, increase transit use, then have housing closer to jobs and grocery stores and other daily services, that type of a thing. To date, what I would say we haven't done is been say, okay, now that those projects have been completed and they've been existing for a little bit, is now go back and say, how well did we do, right? How well are those doing? Where are we seeing the benefits from those and where are we not? So we can update our component of the SCS and say, how are those strategies doing? How do they compare? And is there anything for revisions? And how do we make sure that future assumptions are in line and reasonable? And then they work at it. And how could that progress be made? And so part of that is going back and looking and say, how has the region done? And so that is something I don't think we've done collectively really in some time, because the initial SCS components back in 2015 was like, hey, we're gearing these things up, and it's taken a couple of cycles just to get those projects realized and then built and then be in place. And so I want to be able to look at that. So, but it is still up subject to review by Caltrans to see what they think about that and how that fits. There are some other ideas that were discussed for possible things. So it could be changed. This item might change depending on timing, but this is what's currently drafted right now for possible review and input. So we'll have more of an update in April.
And it would
that's
go through
great.
the amendment process if it changes, so it wouldn't be a surprise to anyone.
Michael, what do you need from us? Do you need just a motion to continue on? Stay the course?
Yeah, there's no vote required, just any feedback related to the OWP if you have any. I try and keep it so there's no surprises, so no feedback is fine.
Thank you.
No, I'm not done, Vice Chair. I've got some questions. The SCS, can you clarify? Because when I read this language, it doesn't really speak to going back and actually doing a review. I'm assuming it's about getting money to continue on with these projects. I understand that. But I'm not seeing where we're planning on doing some review and seeing if it works, because that would be catastrophic because they don't work in my estimation. So I'm not seeing that in the language of that particular paragraph that it's about. We're still aimed at reducing vehicle miles traveled and associated emissions via an improved coordination between land use and transportation. The SCS is an integral part of the RTP. So I don't read that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, I don't read that as, hey, we're going to go back and see how well we did.
I think that's what the state does. So the state actually reviews all the data that we provide to them based on the money that they gave us for what they're asking us to do. And then they are going to review those sustainable plans.
What paragraph are you reading? What page?
Just ones,
Inside.
this SCS. I'm sorry, 14, page 14, middle of the page there. Just.
Okay.
Just help me understand. Our overall work program isn't about review. It's about.
Understand. So within what you're talking about there, that is a summary of what the sustainable community strategy is meant to do, what it's meant to address for SB 375. In the staff report and in the work element 7 and 119,
Okay.
I specifically called out in bullet points 5 down at the bottom of the second page of the staff report.
Yep.
The proposed work would evaluate real world benefits and outcomes of individual and combined SCS projects implemented in the Shasta region since SB 375 was passed. The idea here is to say, how would those projects do? And the ongoing, I'll say, fun battle with CARB that we have about what are the assumptions that you have and what are the results that you assume from those metrics.
Right.
Are they in line with that? Are they not? And how do we need to revise it? It's also going to help us inform for future efforts to say, here's the projects that have happened in the region. Here are the benefits we have realized. Here's what the results really mean. So when we go back and forth, we have something to defend why we go a certain direction, especially if it's counter to what CARB wants us to do.
Right.
Because we have to go through this whole process. At the end of the day, the challenge we have is they get to evaluate our SCS component with our TP and say, do they think it reasonably will meet the greenhouse gas reduction target? We are going to look and say, what are those rules? How do those work? And how do we evaluate? So it will inform from what we've done in the past, as well as inform future assumptions in that planning component.
It's good.
So that's the thought of what we're
Rarely
doing.
learn from the past in our
Right.
society in America.
So that is the
Glad to hear
intent.
that.
What it is, again, it's still subject to review by Caltrans and the feds to kind of review that and see what they think and give us feedback. It could modify or change a little bit based upon what's proposed. I do have it where in the work plan, it wouldn't start till towards the end of the fiscal year. With the time we have a lot of emphasis on developing the current update to the regional transportation plan, which we'll start to have meetings related to that in April. So we're balancing workload there of the processes and timing. So it'll be a little bit of time before that work is completed, if it's approved.
Any other questions?
It would be not completed in this upcoming fiscal year.
No, when you look at the work element, I show that it's going to start in the second half of this fiscal year. And it is probably at least an 18 months to 2-year process, I would think, because part of it's going to be going back to local agencies, housing departments, public works, transit, others, and say, here's all these other projects, the strategies, what have they done? And then to evaluate that in its entirety. So it'll take some time. If it's approved in a move forward action, so.
Any other questions?
So
on
on
this?
page 9, second paragraph, the Shasta region is also experiencing worsening impacts from the climate crisis, more extreme heat, more extreme participation, and more frequent severe wildfires, all of which pose operational and maintenance challenges. Is the language in there just because that's what the state will give us the money for? Because I disagree with those terms, extreme. We have snow events, we have rain events, we have heat events, and they're just events. And anybody that's been around this country for more than 25 years would understand that happens every now and again. So I'll do that with and adding into on page 15, the
Do you have a
resilient.
change that you would make on that? Do you have a suggestion for a different language?
I'm asking, is that what we have to put in the report
I would
to
say
get the money so that the state says, oh yeah, they believe all that?
it is part of what the state rhetoric has been with language, with grants and programs. And so what we do is we try to balance that. Often what we would say is we say extreme weather events, and we identify what those are as well. That's another term that we will use that they consider there. But yes, we are acknowledging both federal and state requirements, language, grant programs to maximize opportunity for these programs.
Yeah. Okay, and then, probably enough.
All right, so we'll move on to agenda item 14. You're up again, Michael.
All right, let me get my share going here. Okay, is that coming up right?
Presentation mode.
Shoot, hang on.
That's all right.
I'm gonna, Vice Chair, I'm gonna recuse myself from this one. Actually, pretty good friends with one of the people on the team, and just want to, out of the exercise of caution, I'm gonna end up recusing myself on this one. So,
Are you financially benefiting from it?
no,
It doesn't matter.
No.
If the member feels that
Yeah.
they should.
Well, I want to know the nature of the refusal. Is there
yeah,
a
there was
financial
there was a
incentive?
donation to a campaign, and I'm just not gonna take a risk with this group twisting it into something it's not. So I'll recuse myself.
I see John Ando has his hand raised for comment. Oh, it just went down. Okay. I think. Let me check here.
Well, we're on to the next item and you're out for presentation, so you can present.
Okay, thank you.
Who's on it?
Once I conclude the presentation, I'll see if his hand's still up. This is agenda item 14, receive an update on the Regional Early Action Planning Program and approve changes to Emergent 3D Subrecipient Agreement. This is a two-part recommendation. Let me get my clicker to work. First part of the recommendation is to receive an update on REAP 2.0. In the city of Reading, funds went to the Parkview Haven project located on Parkview near City Hall. Site work is still expected to begin next month, and factory-built homes are expected to arrive on site in April, and they are expecting a certificate of occupancy in August. Invoices totaling nearly $417,000 have been received, and nearly $289,000 remains to be billed. In the city of Shasta Lake, infrastructure improvements shown on this chart here are expected to be completed within the next 1 to 2 months. So far, we've received invoices totaling about $84,000. We're expecting a rather large invoice for the remaining amount of 810 and change to be billed, but that one is nearly done. Emergent 3D, they originally proposed a project on Leland Avenue, shown here, right above my head. They ran into certain project challenges, making it cost prohibitive to continue at that site. Staff advised the SRTA Fiscal and Policy Committee, and we asked Emergent 3D to prepare a new proposal. We've received that proposal, and HCD has reviewed and approved the new proposal. And so now we're taking it to you. So far, they have invoiced us a little over $25,000 for design services. Those will be able to be applied to the new site. And they have just shy of $381,000 remaining to be billed. So for context, this is the city of Shasta Lake with Shasta Dam Boulevard, aka State Route 151 at the bottom, the railroad running diagonally. Up in the corner over there is the project location. That's on Black Canyon Road. This is a closer view of that. Their revised proposal proposes partnering with North Valley Catholic Social Services, who has site control of 5 parcels on Black Canyon Road, shown here. And they are proposing to deliver ultimately the same number of units as they proposed in Reading, albeit in different forms. And so I'll go over that. These 2 sites here with the black lines will be the first to be developed. And then as funds are identified for the remaining parcels, access will be built in between them to access those. So the breakdown, the original proposal included site prep for 10 single-family homes and construction of 2 single-family homes to be sold to affordable housing, with a full build-out of 10 single-family homes in Reading. Now, the revised proposal calls for the construction of up to 2 single-family homes using REAP funds, and the full build out would be 5 single family homes and 5 ADUs. So still a total of 10 units, albeit in a different form. And our recommendation to the board is that this proposal be approved. This is the theoretical timeline. Here you can see that we're already into it a little bit. We've got a schematic design coming up with an estimated completion date of March 1st. The bold line items here represent firm dates, and then the highlighted items represent what we're calling off ramps in this effort. So, in case there's any, we have a constrained timeline. The REAP funds have been extended, but they expire at the end of the year, December 31st, and they have to be spent by then. So what is being proposed is that the funds will be used to, excuse me, the funds will be used to help construct 2 family homes at that site, and they will pay for work up to basically the equivalent of framing, 3D printing the walls and all that. And then the rest of the construction of those 2 homes will be funded through other sources. And we've just received word from Emergent 3D that they've received a notice of intent to award for some funds, PLHA funds from the county, which would make all of this happen here. So they think that they can get the funds expended by the end of the year, and that is the timeline. This is a design of what the homes look like, albeit this render was done in the Reading context, but these are the designs that they came up with. I think they're 2 and 2, but we do have representatives here who can answer more questions about that. But our staff recommendation is to authorize the executive director to amend the existing subrecipient agreement with Emergent 3D for the revised project scope of work and to make any necessary minor administrative amendments as appropriate based on input from the Department of Housing. And there is a draft version of the amendment attached to the staff report, as well as site maps and a history of prior board actions on that. So I am looking for a motion on this for authorization. I can put that back up on the screen if it's helpful.
All right, do we have any motions or discussion, questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Michael, this is, the funding is only for 2 houses that would be made by Emergent 3D, and the future funding would do the infrastructure work to build 3 more, so there'd be a total of 5. And to get to 10, the only way we can do that is with the state program that allows each single family house to have an ADU associated with it. And that's how we get up to 10. But this funding so far is only for the first 2 and no ADUs and no infrastructure to build the other 3 single family homes.
That's correct. Well said. And I should also emphasize, because I think I glossed over that fact, as opposed to the City of Reading, these will be rentals, but these will be affordable housing. So there are certain income restrictions based on that, according to the REAP guidelines.
And the PHLA funds, they got a letter of intent for those? You said?
That is my understanding. Yeah. I can have Don here answer that if you like.
Yeah, and then if you could also answer, will those PHLA funds fund the rest of the project or only partially?
I'm sorry, what
Or
was that?
how much of the PHLA will, how much more will that complete?
Okay, Don, you should be able to talk now.
Okay, well, you've got Joe. This is Joe Comenti.
Okay.
Good morning, board. Yes, we did receive a letter of intent yesterday, a notice of intent for $693 additional dollars. That will allow us to complete 2 homes. So they'll both be right off Black Canyon, as Michael showed you on the sheet. We can get both those houses done from beginning to keys. They will belong to NVCSS. NVCSS is a co-applicant with us on that. The goal then would ultimately be to build at least 3 more, given the current structure. The ADUs are not permitted until Black Canyon and Muscle Shoals roads meet. That's a fire requirement, and that is certainly on the plan. But as Michael said, the only funding we have right now is to complete 2 homes.
What is the plan for the other ones?
I'm sorry?
What's the plan for the other 3 and then the other 5?
We'll see what other funds become available. Obviously, we'd look for more PLHA funds. We're hopeful that we'll execute this successfully along with REAP funds, and that when we apply for more, maybe we'll be considered again. There's also HAP funding and community development block grants. So we will continue in conjunction with NVCSS to look for additional funding. Obviously, we want to build as many homes as we can because we all know that our community is in desperate need of high quality but affordable housing, and that's really the direction we're going.
Any other?
Just to clarify, so originally the REAP money itself was going to go towards fully constructing 2 homes and the site work for 10, and then now it's going to be able to pay for just 1 home? What sounds
No,
like
it'll pay-
without the PLHA, we wouldn't be able to build the second.
Correct. Without the PLHA, we can print 1 home, but we did get a notice of intent to complete 2 homes. Part of the challenge we faced is we originally put in for this or Emergent originally put in for it in 2022. It's now 2026. Sadly, with all the wildfires and the COVID impact, the cost of construction's gone up. So we're trying to adjust to contemporary dollars. But yes,
That
if
was
we
my
only
guess.
built one, it would be, we would build the entire home. Obviously, we would borrow the balance of the money, and that was one of the presentations that you received, or that Michael and Sean received. So we wouldn't leave the house not completed. There'd be 1 house completed, and we would either sell it to a qualified buyer, sell it to NVCSS, or rent it ourselves. But in lieu of the fact that we got the notice of intent, our expectation is we will be able to navigate through the process with PLHA and get the 2 built.
But no infrastructure?
I'm sorry?
No additional infrastructure?
They have infrastructure, as we understand it, for the 2 single-family homes that will be built off of Black Canyon, but the shared driveway is shown in there, as well as other stuff will be at a future phase.
Correct. But we will pull the utilities to this side of the road, which is a big expense right now.
And what prompted the decision to move it to rentals away from for sale for first-time home buyers?
It was really just finding the right partners, and we are very much in favor of first-time buyers, but being able to have a collaboration with NVCSS, who has a very successful track record in running very well maintained housing, and since they own the land, it was really what precipitated us to have a partnership with them. As Michael said, the qualifications are the same. It's still 80 to 120% of AMI, as it would be for buyers, it would be for renters, and that is also the case with the PLHA. So at the end of the day, the goal is we want to build houses that people can afford to live in. Ideally, we would love to build neighborhoods for home ownership, and that's certainly a direction we want to continue to go in. But right now, we want to get people in houses.
Do you know if NVCSS will be seeking, housing choice vouchers from the county to pay the rents of the tenants that they plan to put in there?
I don't know that. I mean, that'd be a question I could ask. I think because of the income levels of the individuals that would be in these homes, that I don't know that they'll need any subsistence on that and any subsidies, but that's a question I can't answer.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
As an aside, those homes come with a 55-year covenant. I think it's 55-year covenant that had to be used for affordable housing for that period of time.
That is correct. Yes.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Does anybody want to make a vote?
Make a motion to authorize this amendment to the contract and allow the executive director to, make the necessary changes.
I'll second it.
Go ahead.
All right, well, we have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none? All right, we'll move to any suggestions for board members.
Can we bring, Phone Member Gallagher back in, please? Sure.
All right, we're moving to item 15. Receive any suggestions for our board members relative to potential topics in future board of record meetings? Any suggestions? All right, well, without any suggestions, we will adjourn.
Can everybody stick around though? Board members, I do need signatures from everybody. Please,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, I'll take